This conference will now be recorded.
I'd like to welcome everybody for attending our session number 34 in NSA's Professional Services Series webinars. And our session today is going to be on CSD Accounts Receivable, 15 essential tools for the AR professional and credit teams. And our presenter today is Brandy Alderman. Just a couple housekeeping things I'd like to cover before we get started. If you do have questions during the session, I would invite you to please enter it into the chat box. We will get to as many of those questions as we can during the hour. I would also like to let everybody know that following the session today, you feel free to share those recordings with anybody else on your team. And you can certainly feel free to reach out to me afterwards. We will have a promotion, so please stay on to the very end where we will cover that after the Q&A session series. And I am going to shut my camera off at this point, and I'd like to go ahead and introduce our speaker for today's session. So our speaker for today is Brandy Alderman. Brandy is a senior business consultant with NSA. She has 29 years of experience in the software applications arena. She's a graduate of University of Illinois with a computer science and engineering degree. She spent many years with application development as a developer, designer, and a consultant. And for the past 20 years, Brandy's focused exclusively in the SXE software arena, including leading software development teams, spearheading several upgrades from Chewy to GUI to Web UI to CSD. She has worked as an IT director for both small and large distributors. And Brandy's been with NSA for a year and a half. And during that time has established really a very strong following with our customers, upgrading to CloudSuite. Brandy's been involved in so many of those, helping them eliminate custom modifications, enabling them to maximize their investments by using new and existing and standard functionality to achieve their business goals. And with that, Brandy, I'd like to go ahead and turn it over to you.
Okay, thanks, Brian. Hello, everyone, and so happy to see all of you here, all excited about accounts receivable. Today we are going to talk, and this is more of an introductory level, entry level. We're not going to get into super advanced, but this is really about introducing you to accounts receivable within CSD and showing you some of the standard features that are essential. I've titled this 15 essential tools, but we may actually get more than 15 out of this. But with that being said, I'm going to turn off my camera. I'll turn it back on during the question and answer session, but then we can focus on the presentation. So talking today, so today we'll be talking about just a few things, a brief introduction to CSD. We'll go into cash receipts and talk about using some of those features as well as using AR groups. I'll touch on that. Then we'll talk about custom transaction entry, maintaining transactions, reversing payment transactions, and then finally we'll wrap up with some of the key AR reports in managing your customer credit. So I am going to go into the application for most of our presentation today. And so if any of you have not seen CSD, this is CSD. What does that mean? CloudSuite Distribution. It is an environment that is hosted in the cloud. That means it's not in your location. It's not anywhere in your location. It is hosted somewhere else. That's really all it means as far as the cloud goes, but it is an entirely separate interface. And what I tell all my clients is that at the root, this is SXE. So as I go through this, it's going to seem familiar to you guys, but it does have this different interface, but don't be intimidated by it. For those of you who've been around the application for a while, it's like going from character to GUI. It's just another jump in a different type of interface. So I am here in my CSD screen, and I have a couple of options when I want to navigate. So I'm going to first start off and go into cash receipts. So there are a couple of ways that I can do that. I can do it through the menu here. So if I click on it, it toggles it in and out. And I can go down here. And one thing to point out within CSD is that there's been a terminology change. So you're used to in standard SXE screens, if you're using them now, you're used to seeing AP, AR, OE. You'll notice that I don't have anything that says accounts receivable or AR on the screen. That's because they've renamed it to customer. So I'm going to click on this, and still you'll recognize my standard setup, inquiry, entry, reports, and administration. So it's still basically the same, you're just looking for customer instead of AR. So I could go into my customer entry and down here to cash receipt, and I would be able to open the screen. The other way that I can navigate is this little search function over here. The great thing about CSD is that anywhere there's a box, I can start typing something and it's going to search the description in that field for what I'm looking for. So I could start typing cash and immediately you'll see that it goes to cash receipts. But you'll see also here this ARECE. So we have not lost the acronym. So for everyone who's been in the environment for several years, like me, you get used to your little acronyms and you don't want to let them go. Don't worry, you don't have to with CSD. So I'm going to go into my cash receipts here, and here's our standard journal screen. Everyone's used to seeing that pop open, so it immediately starts to open my journal. I click OK. Now, a couple of things with my cash receipts screen in CSD. First, along this left-hand side of the screen, you'll notice that there is this totals bar. And as I start going through and applying, you'll see these numbers increase and decrease as I select and deselect things. And my proof is always shown here so that I know where I am in my receiving if I've got my zero proof and I can do my final update. One thing I do want to point out down here, here's my journal number, but you'll notice that this close is grayed out. That is because within CSD, I cannot close a journal within cash receipts and then open a new one. I have to finish all my cash receipts, and the way that I close this journal is that I end up and I hit the X to close cash receipts, then my journal is closed. And one last thing before I go in, I want to mention, if you'll see these two arrows that are pointing to the left, I can collapse that. So if I need all this space over here on my screen, I can give myself a little extra space and a little more, especially if I'm using a smaller screen, that would be very helpful. So within cash receipts, let's talk about basic functionality. I go in and I just want to pay an invoice. So I enter my payment. For those of you who have been using cash receipts, this will seem very familiar to you. I choose my payment type or the type of entry I'm going to make, and I choose payment here. And then I can enter a check number. So I'll just enter my check number here. Now, one thing I've enabled, and this is enabled within your administrative options, so you do not have to turn this on, but I have the ability in cash receipts to track the type of payment that I'm getting. So anything that is not a credit card payment, for example. So we have options here set up. These are user defined. So I can choose from whether this is a cash, check, or a wire payment from my customer. If I'm interested in tracking those, I can turn that functionality on. So I'm just going to choose it's a check payment. And then the amount that my customer is paying is $46.01. And I'm going to click the next button. And then that drops me down to my apply to. Well, I am going to choose invoice because I'm just applying an amount to an open invoice and I have the invoice number. So I enter my invoice number right here. I click tab and immediately the system goes out and it looks for that invoice, it finds it, displays my customer number right down here, and then if there is a bank set up on the customer, it's going to default it here. Then I can click my next button, and as I go in, you'll see that my invoice here is shown in my grid. It's already selected for me. And you'll see over here in my running totals, here's the amount that I had available. So this is the payment amount that I have to apply to invoices. It says the selected amount now is 4601. Well, this item is selected and I scroll over and yes, that invoice amount is 4601. But you'll notice my proof is still 4601. That is because this is selected, yes, but I have not yet marked it as paid in full. So there are two ways I can do that. With this line selected here, I can go over here and I can click paid in full, or I can scroll over as you saw me do there, and I can just click in the paid in full. Now you'll see my running totals. Now my applied amount is $46.01 and my proof is 0. So I can be done with my entry. I click finish and then it's going to ask me if I'm ready to update, and yes, I am. And now that has been applied to my customer record. You can apply payments to simple payment, apply it by customer instead of just invoice. So again, here I am in my payment. I'm just going to enter a check amount. We'll just do checks mostly for today. Enter the payment amount and click my next button. And this time, instead of choosing invoice, even though this is just a payment for one invoice, but instead of choosing invoice, I'm going to choose customer. Now, I could do this if maybe the customer had sent me payments for multiple invoices. That is the time when you probably would select customer. But for our purposes today, I'm just going to demonstrate this. So I'd select customer and I'd enter my customer number. And you notice that as I type it, I get a selection that comes up here where I can choose the numbers that start with 1001. Well, I'm looking for Bob and Tom's Hardware here. And again, they're bank defaulted. And I go to next. And then it comes up with a list of invoices for me. So I am looking for invoice 79. Now I could scroll through, you'll notice there's 12 pages here. I could go through and I could scroll through to find invoice 79. A couple of other things that I can do in this grid. There are two options to search. First, the easiest is that I can click on this little magnifying glass and I can type 79. And enter. Well, that's interesting. There we go. I had to enter the -00. It did not do a partial search for me. So I entered 79-00, and here is the line that came up, and that's my invoice that matched. The other way that I can do that, so let's say I didn't use that, I can also go over here and choose show filter row. And then right here under invoice number, and this will do a partial match for me. I can enter 79, and now it's going to bring up any invoice that starts with 79 for me. Still, I want that 79-00. So I'm going to go here, and then this time I'm going to select it and then click the paid in full. And you'll notice that my proof now goes to 0, and I can finish and update. So those are some basic ways that you can use cash receipts. But let's say, what if you need to write off all or part of an invoice? Maybe you have to do this. The customer was not supposed to be charged tax, but they were. And you agree that you're going to write off the sales tax because they had an expired tax certificate, they didn't realize it, whatever the reason, or they're going to partially pay an invoice and you want to write off the rest of the amount for them. So in this example, customer is paid with a check in the amount of $1,300. Click my next, and then I'm going to bring up my invoice number, The invoice that I'm working with is invoice 113 that my customer has paid. Again, you'll see my customer and bank come up. And then I come in here and there is my invoice number 113 already pre-selected. Now, if you notice, it's selected, but it shows that the selected amount is $1,413.35, but the amount that they paid is $1,300. So what am I going to do? Because I do want to mark this as paid in full, but of course, if you notice, then if I click it, or if I select paid in full, it marks my proof off. So I'm going to leave it clicked, marked as paid in full, but the amount that I'm going to apply is $1,300. Now, as soon as I do this, so I can hit enter or I can hit tab, as soon as I do this, CSD recognizes that this is a write-off. And if you notice right here, it's already selected the write-off account. So it is already writing off that $113.35. So it does this automatically for me. Now, do I have to send it to this GL account? I don't. Maybe there's a different GL account that I want to send my write-off to. I could edit this. I could remove this line by clicking it and click delete, and then add a different account that I want to send this write-off amount to. If you'll notice, there's a write-off tax option over here. So if it was the tax, in the example of the tax that I wanted to write off, I could select the line, it would show my tax amount, and then I could click write off tax. In this case, it is not the tax I'm writing off. I'm just writing off because I'm happy that the customer paid me. So I'm just going to write off this $113. I click OK and then finish. And now I'm ready to update. So write-offs are pretty simple within CSD. And I want to show you, I'm going to bring up ARIC for this customer. I apologize. Let's see. That was, I don't think, no, that was ABC Supply. That's right. Got lost there. I forgot what account we did that to. So if I search in here for invoice number 113 and I click search, you'll notice that now this is the journal number, because if you notice over here, here's my journal number 1529. So you can see that now it has applied the payment, but it's only applied the $1,300 to my customer's transaction. I can see also by bringing up my journal in GLIJ, just like in GUI, if I bring up my journal number, which was 1529, you'll see in my general ledger transactions, you'll see my write-off amount there. So pretty simple and straightforward, right? The other thing that you might need to do is if a customer has paid an invoice, but maybe they've taken a discount past the discount due date. And I'm happy the customer is paying this. Maybe they're pretty behind on their payments, so I'm pretty happy they're paying this. So I'm just going to give them their original discount. So without me having to calculate that or write it off or anything within the application, I can just automatically recall that discount amount. So I enter my payment just like before, and this payment is $318.60. And we're going to do that for invoice. The invoice number that I'm paying here is invoice 519. So as you see, I come in, my 519 is automatically selected. And I'll go over here, and again, I will click paid in full. And if you notice, my proof is now wrong because it says that I'm down $6. Well, I happen to know that that is the original discount amount that was applied and would have applied had they paid this on time. But I am going to go up here and I'm going to click on original discount. And as you will see here now in the discount amount, it has brought that $6 in, and now my proof is 0. So now I can completely pay this. I'm giving the customer their entitled discount had they paid this on time. Maybe it was a situation where I understand why it was late. That's why I'm giving them the discount amount, but I don't have to write off that amount. It's just considered discounts due to the customer. So then I'll click on finish. Am I ready to update? Yes, I am. And now that's been applied. The last thing we'll talk about here in cash receipts is how to do a split payment. So why would you do a split payment? For example, if you're getting a payment that applies to multiple customers, maybe it's a finance company, for example, that is sending you a lump sum check, but it's meant to pay several different invoices. So for that, you use the split check option here. And I would enter whatever my check was and the payment amount that came from the company. Oh, and you'll notice here, I got ahead of myself. When you do a split check, the first thing you have to select is the bank. So I'm just going to select my default bank that I'm going to use, and I click next. Now it's going to jump me to entering a customer. So the first customer number I am working with is going to be Ellis Plumbing. Now you'll notice when I click in the customer number field, you'll see that there are 5 customers listed here. These are the last 5 customers that I've dealt with in the application. We call this the MRU, or the most recently used list, and you'll find this throughout CSD in customer and vendor and order and warehouse and ship to. All of these will have an MRU, so if you're using the same customers throughout the application, you no longer have to re-enter those customer numbers over and over. I can just go down here and select my Ellis Plumbing. I click next, and the first thing I'm going to do is find invoice 92, which is conveniently right here on my first page. It has an amount of $441.98. I'm going to mark that as paid in full. Now you'll notice that my proof is not 0, but I'm going to finish. And what it's going to do is going to bring me to my unapplied cash screen. Well, I don't want to leave anything on this customer's account as unapplied cash. I want to apply it to a new customer. So I'm going to keep the default amount here of 0 and click OK. Notice it didn't ask me if I'm ready to update yet, because now I'm taken where I can select a second customer. The customer that I'm going to select here is my ABC Supply. And I click next. And now this invoice is invoice number 379. And again, you'll see that this is a large amount. I'm going to pay it in full, yet I still have some monies left over. I'm going to finish because I'm going to move this on to a third customer. So it doesn't just have to be 2 customers. I could be splitting this check across several customers. So I'm going to say okay. And then the last one I'm going to do is I'm going to look for Jones. And notice I start typing the name and it comes up as Jones Manufacturing. So now I can select that, go to my next screen. Now, if you notice here, there are a couple of invoices, but they don't match the invoice amount. In fact, they're an overpayment. Well, I'm not really sure what to do. So what I am going to do is I'm not really sure if it's meant for both of these invoices or one of them. I'm going to go and I'm going to research it and figure out later but I want to make sure that this credit is on the customer's account. So I'm just going to click Finish, and then it's going to take me to my unapplied cash. And what I'm going to do now, I am going to enter the unapplied amount that I have and leave it as unapplied cash on this customer's account. And I'm going to click OK. And now I'm back to the beginning. My proof is 0. Everything has been applied. And you would be able to see if I went into that customer's account, sorry, 1010. If I go into that customer's account, and as I go through here, you will see there is my unapplied cash. So that's cash receipts. So those are the key functions in cash receipts. I mentioned AR groups. So within CSD, you have the ability to set up AR groups. So maybe these are individual customers. So they're separate customers, separate entities, but they all roll up into one corporate account. And that corporate is not necessarily your customer, but you set a credit limit for that corporate for all, for all of the customers under it. Maybe that corporate group pays you for all of the customers. So you can put them in an AR group, and you would be able then to pay when you receive those payments, very similar to a split check. But down here, I'll just show you briefly. For $1, we'll just say here, oh, there's my payment type. Then I would have the ability here to pay by group. I would enter the group, and then on the next page, it would show me all the invoices for all the customers within that group. So it allows me to bulk pay all those customers in one group. So that's a functionality that some customers find very useful. Another essential tool for you in your AR playbook is customer transaction entry. So that's in ARET. So as I go into ARET, again, you will see that it opens a journal. And there are a few things that I can do in ARET. I use this when I want to increase or decrease the amount due on a customer's account, but it doesn't involve money or product changing hands. So it could be a situation where the customer owes me something. You'll see that there are types that I can create in here. Couple of them that I will walk through with you are an invoice. So this is usually the most common. Invoices and miscellaneous credits are the most common ones, in addition to service charges, though most people apply service charges automatically. So entering an invoice, you create a new payable in the system. It ages like a regular invoice, and it can even be used to reference an existing invoice. In this example, my customer rented a piece of equipment from me and they damaged it, and I want to create an invoice to have them pay for it because our agreement says that they will. So I want to create an invoice for them to pay for it, but I don't want to go through OE because there's really no product associated with it. So I can choose the customer number. I'm going to choose 10256 here, and I'm going to choose invoice, and then I go to my next page. And here I can enter any invoice number I want to. I'm just going to enter today's date as my invoice number, and the amount that the customer is paying me is $23,909. I can enter a reference. Now, because this is not related to sales really, I'm going to uncheck this. So it's not going to affect my sales reporting. And I'm going to choose different terms because I'm going to give the customer the opportunity to pay this in 3 installments. You'll notice here, as I enter this, I can also adjust that split payment. So as I mentioned, there are 3 split payments, but they've agreed that they're going to pay it in, $10,000 the first two payments, and then the remainder in the third. So I can go in here and I can adjust those payments. And I'm just going to delete this so I can see how much. So it's $39.09 is my final payment. So you see, I can set up those scheduled payments, and I could even change the due date. And if I don't want them to get a discount, I can change that. So I'm going to click that OK and next. And then it's going to ask me for a GL distribution. And I'm going to add that, and I'm just going to add it to, we'll do AR sales. We'll say you might have an account for this. If you were doing this type of invoice for your customers, you'd have an account. I'm just choosing AR sales for demonstration purposes. Now I save it, and if you notice down here, all the transactions that I'm doing are located here. Now, one thing I will make you aware of is over here in my AR transaction screen, I do have the ability to open and close my journals. Unlike in cash receipts, I can actually open and close them on demand if I want to. So if I'm entering in different periods of time, I don't have to go out of customer transaction entry to close my journal. So I can also add a miscellaneous credit in here. This is, maybe I have a rewards program that I can give my customer credits on a quarterly basis, based upon their sales. It accrues, and then at the end of the quarter, I give them a credit. So I have a customer I'm going to give this credit to. I enter my customer number. I choose my miscellaneous credit. And then I go through, and again, I'm prompted for an invoice amount. Maybe I would have a credit number, so I'm just going to type an invoice number here. The amount that I'm giving them, I would type here, whoops. And then I could choose a ship to. I could apply it to a specific ship to if I want to. In this case, because it is part of our customer loyalty program and it does affect our sales, I am actually going to allow it to affect sales year to date. And then I would click next. Now, here in my GL distribution, I can choose the account I want to pay it for. In this case, maybe I want to apply it to 2 different divisions. So I would go here and I would add, and I would choose my account. And it's actually under customer incentives. So I'm going to choose my customer incentives account. And I'd enter the amount and click OK, and click OK. And then if I wanted to enter it for the other division, there it is. And then you'll notice that automatically the remainder amount appears here. And now my proof is 0, so I can save it. And now this miscellaneous credit has been applied to that customer. And if I go into my customer inquiry for that account, we should be able to see that miscellaneous credit right here. And there you see it's been added to my account. The last thing that I will show you in customer transaction entry are debit and credit memos. So a debit or credit memo is a way to increase or decrease the amount due on an invoice without having to go through the process in OE. Now, you might be familiar with applying a correction in OE, and as long as there's no payments made on that invoice, you can apply that credit or that correction to the original invoice. That's very similar to a debit memo within AR. I just don't have to go through the whole OE process. So in this example, maybe a customer should have been charged tax and wasn't. So let's look at, I'm I want to show you what it looks like now first. So under my transactions, I'm going to find invoice 728 here and search. And then down here, you'll see, here's my scheduled payment of $383.52. The amount due is $383.52. I am going to go in here for that customer. Oh, there it was. I didn't even have to type it because of my MRU. And I am going to choose a debit memo in this case. And you'll see here, now I have to apply credit and debit memos to existing invoices. So here I am going to need to enter my invoice number. So there I start typing and it pops up and I click next. And now, and of course it's going to ask me again. So this is the invoice number for my debit or credit memo. I can make it the same invoice number that I had. And you'll see how this applies. So I am going to choose this invoice. Well, actually, I am just going to choose a different one. I'm just going to choose 2021 1007. And the amount I am applying, oops. And that is one thing you have to be careful about when you click in the fields instead of tab. Make sure that you're not typing at the beginning of the numbers. So I should have tabbed. I usually do tab, but when I'm presenting, I tend to use my mouse a lot more. So I am going to apply the amount. Did I choose a debit memo? Maybe that's my problem. Yeah, I did. Okay. I just wanted to make sure there. I had a moment of unclarity where I thought I hadn't. Then I go to next. And then here I can add my GL distributions. I'm going to add it to tax, state tax. There we go. Say okay. And my proof is 0 and I'm going to save it. So now you'll see my debit memo here. There is my debit memo number. Now, again, I could have applied it to that 728 and I would have had an invoice 728-99, but I just wanted to show you, you don't have to use the same number. However, if I go back into my customer inquiry and let's refresh that, now you will notice that I have this. For this invoice, I have a new payable of $21.09. So now there are 2 payables for this invoice, and I have effectively increased the amount of this invoice. So that is how I use a debit memo. Credit memos work the same way. And they would just decrease the amount of the invoice. Now, I want to quickly show you maintaining transactions. So if I type maintain, customer maintain transaction entry. So within this screen, I can enter a customer number. And I can search, and it brings up a list of all of my open invoices. And I can choose an invoice here and I can make changes to it. So there are a couple of things that I can do. So for example, I'm just going to go into one of these. I click on the button here. I go into open item maintenance, and within the screen, I can make adjustments to the invoice date, the due date, the discount amount, and the discount date. So if you notice here, there is no discount on this order. I could say, you know, maybe my customer called me and they complained about something. So I said, yes, I'll give you a 10% discount. So I can type 10 here and it's going to tell me how much it's going to apply. I could change the due date. So right now this is due, it was due, so clearly it's overdue. I could change the discount date. This is where if a customer is disputing a transaction, I can go in and click the dispute. I save it, and now that invoice has a discount amount that's been applied to it, so I don't, and it looks like I clicked on one that actually was split across 2 payments, so it's been applied to that one payment. But now I don't have to adjust the order. I don't have to go in and make adjustments for the customer. I can just go in here and maintain the transaction. The same goes for, let's look at this invoice here. Let's say the customer has called me and said that, yeah, they want to pay this invoice, but they need to pay it over the course of the next 3 months. And I tell them, sure, that would be great, but I need you to make a payment every 2 weeks in order to bring your account current. So I could actually go in here and I could split my payment across six payments, and the payment would be due every 14 days. And when I click on it, you'll notice that it then brings up my payments. It automatically has split them. And I can, from the screen, I can change the amount. So if I want them to pay more up front, I could change the amounts up front. I could remove this discount. I could change the payment dates. I can make adjustments to the customer's scheduled payments without affecting the invoices at all. I am just affecting the scheduled payments. So I can click save here. And then if you notice, I would go down in here, and now you can see all my scheduled payments that are listed here. So that's another tool that you can use as within AR to help manage your customers' credit more. Before we jump into the key reports, and we'll cover that really quickly, I do want to show you a new functionality within CSD. It is called payment reversal. We use this to reverse cash receipts transactions. So I can go in here and let's look at the ones that I applied today. So I'm in my post date from. I can just type a T and it's going to automatically bring in today's date. I could also click here and it would bring in today's date, and I'm going to search. And here are the payments that were applied today. And I'm just going to go into one of these. Let's say this check number 56. And let's say it came back non-sufficient funds. So I would come in here. I would select my non-sufficient funds reason. And it would bring in some defaults that were set in my administrative options and bring in the fee amount as well as the terms. Now, this is what's going to apply to the fee. So I can enter today's date or just some numbers to be my reference for the invoice. If I have the ability, I can also override this. But I can click that, and what that's going to do is that is going to reverse out that payment, and it is then going to apply that fee. And I had closed my transactions, but I want to show you that real quick here. Let's see. Yeah, that's going to yeah. I was going to try to find that for you. What journal was that? 1531. Yeah, let's look at there. Okay, they are at the top there. So there is my reversal. So you'll see that now my scheduled payment is there. It has created that invoice, and then it's also it should have created that fee for me. I'm trying to find, oh, that is my fee, sorry. Now, my fee was $45. There it is. That is my NSF fee. And then if I go and I were to look for that invoice, and I don't remember which invoice we just reversed. I think that was check number 156. And that was journal. And of course, it's not going to let me drill down into. I should have looked and see what actual order that was, so I could show it to you. But you would find that that was then reversed. You can also do that. You can also do your payment reversal. Again, I can drill down and I can reverse it to being applied to the wrong customer as well as applying to the wrong invoice. And in that case, it reverses the payment transaction, reopens the original invoice, just like it did with the NSF check, and then it creates an unapplied cash either on the customer, on that current customer, if I applied it to the wrong invoice, or to a new customer that I should have applied it to if I apply it to the wrong customer. Now, the last thing I want to cover really quickly here are AR reports. So there are a few reports that I'm going to recommend you run and use. So first, your roll balances report. This is scheduled at least at the end of the month. And I'll bring these up. I already ran these today, so I don't know that we need to go through them in CSD. So I just want to show you your roll balances report. It should be run at the end of the month, obviously, to roll balances. But the other thing that you can use it to do is to automatically apply service charges. You have to have service charges turned on in administrative options, as well as in on each customer in order to apply them. But you'll notice here, it shows you what the settings are. And then as I scroll down, you'll see that service charges are automatically applied. So instead of having to go into ARET and create those service charge invoices, this can automatically apply them for you. So if you have customers that are past due and you want to apply those service charges, remember that's in your roll balances report. Again, accounts receivable roll balances. The other report is your customer credit report. This is ARRCC. This report you can use to review all the relevant credit information contained in the customer record. And this can be run for each of your customers over their credit limit. So I want to show you what that looks like. So I have 3 customers here over their credit limit, and I can specify how much over the credit limit I want it to run, but I can then run this either weekly or daily as a credit manager to look at my customers who are over the credit limit to see if I need to contact them. Again, that's ARRCC, your accounts receivable credit report. And you'll see that it also calculates your average days to pay, though the third report is your average days to pay. So if you want to calculate average days to pay across all of your customers, you can run this report and you can update it in the customer record so that you have that information available. And if you notice, this report is going to show you what the current value was and then recalculate it and tell you what the new one is. Now, you don't have to update your customer records when you run this, but it will still calculate it for you. You can choose whether you want to update those customer records or not when you run it. And then there is the customer payment history analysis. You'll notice that this shows information about your customer payments, their increases and decreases in their balance, their percent past due, the percent of their balance that is past due, and it gives you a snapshot into how good of a customer they are being for you and allows you to get in front. If you start seeing increases period over period and not seeing decreases, then you know that your customer is maybe getting into a bad situation and you might want to get in front of it. So again, that is ARRCH, your payment history analysis. And then the last report is your early credit warning. This will show you the percentage of the credit limit, or you can choose a percentage of credit limit that your customer is at, and it will show you customers that are within that percent of their credit limit. So I could look for customers that are at 90% of their credit limit and look at it on a daily or weekly basis to see if I need to increase their credit so that their orders aren't going on hold. Again, that is ARRCW. So I know I went through those pretty quickly, but hopefully you had some takeaways there. Any questions?
Yeah, so Brandy, we have a few questions, some that were asked to everyone and then some that were sent to us privately. I would ask that any other questions than what we've already received, that you please send them to Brandy or I, because we do want to make sure we cover the promotion. We've only got 5 minutes remaining. So question number one, Brandy, and I'll go through the ones to everyone here first. When discounts are applied, this is during, by the way, cash receipts entry. So when discounts are applied in this way, how do you know what GL it is sent to?
So that would be your standard discounts. So the GL for discounts is set in your R&D operators. So your default GLs are set in an operator record, and whatever your standard account that is being used for customer discounts, that is the account that it goes to.
Great, thank you. And another question was asked, can you search by, this was also in cash receipts entry, can you search by customer name as well as customer number? And then you gave an example of that right after the question was asked. So we're good on that one.
Excellent.
Then we have another question here. So this one's a little bit detailed, so I'll try to read it slowly here. What is the best method to enter down payment or progress billing invoices, then enter a final invoice that posts against the order and post to sales when the scheduled payment and final invoice dates are not known?
That seems very detailed. I would like to follow up with that after this call so we could walk through that, and maybe, if you wanted to schedule, as part of the session, the offer, maybe that's something that we could cover as part of that. That's pretty detailed, and I don't want to take up too much time in this meeting to walk through that.
Yep, absolutely. So I'll just ask one more question and we'll go to the promo. So how can I transfer a credit that was applied to the wrong customer to the correct customer?
So that is, you could do in cash receipts. Actually, you can do that with your split check. So let's see. So if I were in cash receipts, and let's say I was here and I'm not really sure which of my customers have a credit, so I will just, so I could start off with amount 0, and it's going to tell me I'm applying a check with a 0 amount, which is fine. And then I'm going to choose my bank. And then I would choose the customer number that I had the credit applied to. Hopefully maybe this customer has a credit. Oh, no, they don't. So what I would do is in here, just like with a split check, I would come in here to my credits, I would select it. It would click on here on my applied, and then I would just click my my finish button. And did I use split check there? I think I did. Yeah, I would go ahead and I would move forward. I would select my credits, and then I would click the OK button, which would then take me to that unapplied cash screen. I would keep it at 0, and then I would move, then I would click OK again. Just like with the split check, I would just select the credits instead of the payment amount. And certainly if you'd like me, if you want to follow up with me after this, I can give you like a step-by-step document to show you how that would be done.
Great, thank you, Brandy. And if you would, let's pull up the promo because we've got about a minute left.
Sure.
And I would ask that anybody else that's asked questions, we do have a few more, that you please contact Brandy and I after this. We'll make sure we get those questions answered. So here is the offer that we have. So attendees that, of this particular webinar can schedule a 1-hour session with Brandy. So you can talk about your specific, questions, your, what it is you're looking to be able to do with your upgrade to CloudSuite, or if you're in CloudSuite and you've got questions around AR, be able to cover that. You can include topics, that is specific to your company, including any custom mods that you may have. Contact me, Brian Weaver, and my email is brian.weaver@nsacom.com. So please contact me. I will get with Brandy. We will get that one-on-one scheduled. So that's a really nice offer. We're offering that for a month. So that will be good for 30 days from the date of this webinar. So please get that scheduled as soon as you can. And I would also invite you, if you have specific questions, you just want to ask questions, you can send those to me. I'll make sure I get those off to Brandy as well. With that, we are at the top of the hour. Brandy, I would like to thank you for giving a very strong presentation on this. I hope everybody that was on this call has found it helpful. Again, you will all get recorded sessions of this. And those that still have questions, again, please contact us and we'll be happy to answer those. And with that, I'd like to thank everybody for attending. And Brandy, again, thank you for giving a great session.
Well, thank you. Thanks, everyone. And thank you, Brian.
You bet. Have a good rest of your day, folks.
Bye now.
Bye.